Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today is day number 13 of the 21 days to feminine magnetism. I am so glad that you guys are following along on this journey. We have about 8 more days left, so that's exciting, guys. So I hope you guys are learning a lot about how femininity is all about an energetic shift that will completely change and revolutionize the type of men that you attract into your life, right? So when I say that I always say femininity is your superpower, and it truly, truly is your superpower. So many women are struggling with relationships, struggling with men, and they keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again. And you know what they say? Insanity is we're doing the same thing time and time again, but expecting a different result. So this this 21 days is you making a change, you reprogramming your mind, you understanding the polarity of romantic relationships and how to use that polarity to your benefit, right? Because as I say, it's your superpower, and men really are um, uh, weak when it comes to femininity. A truly masculine man cannot resist a truly feminine woman. So this is how this feminine magnetism, you tuning your femininity will magnetize quality men to you, as long as you also stay in high value, stay in high value mode, right? So today we're talking about here's how to get him to do what you want, right? So throughout this book, it's been about you. It's been about you doing your inner shift, you worrying about yourself, making the changes that you need to make, making sure you stay out of your ego, making sure you're aware of your ego, making sure you forgive your past. Um, make sure you stop doing a lot of things that haven't worked for you in the past, right? Learning not to try and control someone, that you can only control yourself. So that's what all of this has been about thus far. So now we're going to talk about, well, what about those times where you want him to do something? It's like, okay, I'm focused on me and all those other things, but what about those times where I really do just I need him to do this, or I need him to do that, right? So let's get started with the quote for today. So today's quote is, our anxiety does not come from thinking about the future, but wanting to control it. Khalil Gibran. Khalil Gibran. Okay, so basically with this one, it says our anxiety does not come from the future, but us wanting to control it, right? And that is really the problem with human nature overall, is that we're always trying to control something. Trying to control the weather, trying to control, um, what's going to happen tomorrow, trying to control what's going to happen with your work life, with your finances, trying to control what's going to happen when you go on trips and out of town, what's going to happen with your children, your friends, within your relationships. Always trying to control something. Always trying to control your future, making sure that you have, and nothing is wrong with these things. Nothing is wrong with saving money. Nothing is wrong with trying to invest and all this other stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. But with everything, it's always the energetic field that you come from. So are you coming from an energetic field of fear and worry when you're trying to save money and invest and do things like that? Because you always reap what you sow. So you're always going to reap conditions to give you more reasons to be afraid and to fear and to worry. But if you come from, you know what, life is abundant, but I want to create a legacy. I want to create a legacy for myself. I want to create a legacy for my children or whoever and I want to put this money aside for that, then that's coming from a place of abundance, right? It's not coming from fear. It's coming from a place of abundance. It's coming from a place of um, believing that there's always more and that you are capable of experiencing the best in life, right? So I say all to this to bring it back to relationships. A lot of times, women, I feel like one of the biggest reasons that a lot of relationships fail is because women are trying to control their men, right? Trying to control some man. Maybe he's not even your man. Just trying to control a man that you're dating or something like that. And trying to control the outcome. Trying to control him. Trying to get him to do what you want to do in a controlling way, right? Um, and one thing I've stated before is that men need to feel freedom in order for the opportunity for them to want to commit to you, right? So their commitment has to be something that is completely their idea. They can't feel pressured into it. They can't feel bamboozled into it. They can't feel hoodwinked into it. They can't feel like, oh, might as well, you know. They can't feel like it's something other than their complete own idea to want to move forward. You know what I'm saying? They can't feel like, okay, if I give him, she's giving me some ultimatums. If I don't move forward, then I'm going to lose her. All those different types of things. None of those things work in the long term. Even if on a temporary, in the short term, you may get something, you may get him to do whatever you're trying to get him to do, it's not going to work. So in this chapter, when it talks about how to get him to do what you want him to do, it's really not in essence you getting him to do anything, but it's about you inspiring him to do it, right? It's about you standing your femininity, your high value in a way that will inspire him to want to make changes according to um, what you may want, right? Because this is the thing, you can never, or you should never try to control a man, or you should never try and control the direction of a relationship, because at the end of the day, even if you temporarily get what you want, even if you win the battle, you've lost the war, right? Because he's gonna wake up one day and he's gonna feel like, I'm here against my will. I don't really want to be here. I never chose her, right? So in that from that point on, when he comes to uh, that awareness, he is going to start to move away because, like I said, men need freedom and they need independence, right? So when you take that away from him, right, you take away his incentive to want to do the things on his own, right? And the reason why you may want to do this is because it comes from a place of fear, right? It comes from a place of fear. You feel like if you don't control things, if you don't get things going into um, a certain direction, then they won't go there. That you'll lose this particular man, or you'll lose out on love altogether, or whatever. And that's usually not the case. Most fears are very much so unfounded, right? And honestly, if you do lose someone while holding on to boundaries and standards, then that just means that that person is not the right person for you and you're not the right person for them. So you should not think of it as a loss. You should think of it as a gain, or at least something positive, because this is one less thing that you have to waste your time on, right? So when you pull back, when you allow a man to be himself, right? When you allow him to take the initiative, when you allow him to guide the direction of the relationship, you give him the opportunity to show you that he's interested in making you happy, right? And if you don't do that, if you try and control things, if you try and pursue him, if you get in your masculine energy and you're the one who's doing all the work in the relationship, then you will find that he will start to move back. And what usually happens in this energy is when a man moves back, a lot of times a woman fearful energy. She'll start feeling afraid, like, okay, I'm losing him. I'm not doing enough. What can I do? What can I do to make this better? What can I do to close the gap? What can I do to get his attention? Right? All that masculine energy type here. And this stuff is like he's already pulling back. And then you get into this energy of like, oh, I'm going to lose him. Oh my God, I'm so afraid. Like, no, I have to call him. I have to let him know I'm still interested. No, I have to show him that we're still a match. Those type of things, you get in that trying to convince mode. Then you push him further away, right? Until he's like off the bed, right? It's like the analogy of pushing someone off the bed. You keep pushing them, eventually they fall on the floor. So this is what happens, right? So you have to be free flowing, which is really what feminine energy is about. Is being free flowing and allow a man the opportunity and the space to come towards you and to make you happy if that's what he wants to do. And if he isn't making you happy, and if he isn't stepping up, doing things that you want him to do, then that's just your cue right there to move on, right? Because I personally believe in the dating stage, it does not make sense to try and force things and try and work things out. If it's a square peg and it's just not, or if it's a circle or whatever, square peg, triangle peg, and it's just not fitting in that square hole, then that just means it doesn't meant to be. Don't break it trying to make it fit, right? Like this is the great thing about dating, is like there's no commitment. You're not committed to someone the same way you'd be if you're married to them. So it's easier to break entanglements. This is why I don't advocate for people living with each other, having children with each other when you're dating someone, right? Because you're creating unnecessary entanglements with someone who has not made a commitment to you and you haven't made a commitment to them, right? And it makes it harder to leave situations that you should have left. But if you don't do that, if you date and you separate dating from commitment, which a lot of women don't know how to do, and a lot of people don't know how to do it, period. Separate dating from commitment, think because they're dating someone that means they're committed. And so they start living together and mixing finances and letting people drive their car and signing off on credit and stuff like that and getting leases together and then having children together and stuff like that. And it's like, but no commitment has been made. No commitment has been made. Calling someone your boyfriend, calling someone your girlfriend is not a commitment, right? That's just a label. That's just a title that can easily be put on and put off. It's like the sales at Target, right? Like one week it's $7.99. They put that on the label in there. The next week up, it went on sale. Now it's $5.99. So let me take that label off and put another label, and now it's $5.99. You see how easy it is to take labels, to put labels on and off? And that same thing it is in a boyfriend-girlfriend situation. Those labels are easy come, easy go. So in this instance, that's why it's imperative that you stay without entangling yourself with someone that you're just dating, right? Because you'll be blindsided by a lot of things. You'll miss a lot of red flags because you'll be too invested in something that you should not be invested in. And you'll try and fit, square pegs into circle openings. And it won't fit, but you'll keep jamming in there because you're like, well, we live together. Well, his mama know my mama, and I met his kids, he met my kids, and we got a kid together, or we got one on the way, but we on the same lease, or he signed up with my cars, stuff like that. It's like all of that stuff keeps you entangled in situations that you probably should have left. And this is why a lot of relationships are deadbeat and dead end that should have ended a long time ago, but they did not, because people have an entanglement and attachments to others that they should not have, right? So in the dating game, if something isn't working out, you keep yourself untangled with that person, so it's easy in, easy out. Because just like it's easy to attach someone and give them the label girlfriend or boyfriend, it should be just as easy to untangle yourself from them, right? There's a reason why it's harder to untangle yourself when you're married to someone, right? That's when you get invested. When things are harder, when it's not just like walk in the park, where you actually have to do some work, that's when you should entangle yourself with someone. That's when you should get the house. That's when you should have the kids. That's when you should sign things over and mingle finances and things like that. Because in that instance, it's not just like, okay, I don't feel like being your boyfriend today, bye. I don't feel like being your baby daddy today, bye. Like you actually, because of that commitment level, you have to work on it. I mean, you don't have to. People get divorced, yeah. But more than likely, people have the mentality that when they get married, that there's something to work towards. There's something, I'm committed to this person, they're committed to me, right? So there's something that we have to work on because of that commitment now, right? So a lot of times people get dating and commitment confused, and they are in the dating game and they're committed and they're entangled and attached. And then when you get that, when the other person starts acting up, when the man starts acting up, you get in this fearful energy and you start trying to control him. You start trying to control the outcome, right? And then you just push him further and further away because, as I stated, men are independent and independence loves freedom, right? Remember 4th of July is coming up? What is the 4th of July holiday about? Independence and freedom, right? They go hand in hand. Independence and freedom. All of the independent day like holidays among cultures that are so happy they finally got free from the British. What are all those holidays about? Cinco de Mayo and um, the other Caribbean holidays, right? What are they celebrating? Freedom and independence. They go hand in hand. And so when it comes to men, freedom and independence go hand in hand with them. So they are independent and therefore they need to be free, right? They need to be free to make decisions on their own and to choose you or not choose you, right? They have that right to choose you or not choose you. But whatever they choose, it has to be their decision. It can't be because you pressure them, you're trying to control them, you're trying to control the outcome, right? So as I stated earlier in the previous section, ways what it looks like to try and control a man, right? The 7 C's, right? So go back, I think that was like Masculine Respect Day, where I was talking about ways that it looks like when you're trying to control someone, or when you're trying to control a man, like you're coaxing him and things like that. So today's lesson is about, instead of using most ways that women try to control men, which is usually full of tactics and strategies and manipulation and ultimatums, and if you don't do this, then we're not going to have sex, or if you don't do this, I'm going to leave you, or I got a 60-day rule, or, you know, even more subtle ways is like contacting him all the time. That's trying to control the outcome, right? Contacting him first, initiating contact most of the time, is a form of trying to control the outcome, right? Because you're trying to keep yourself at the forefront of his mind. You're trying to be like, hey, don't forget about me. I'm over here. Hey, how you doing? Hey, stranger, remember me, right? You're trying to make sure that he doesn't forget about you, right? So you are feel like, okay, I need to contact him so that he knows that I exist. So that he knows I'm alive. The thing about it is, men know you're alive. If they decide not to contact you, it's not because they're busy. It's not because nothing that they said. It's because they just don't want to. At least at that moment, that's the case. Maybe in the future they may decide that they want to contact you, but at that moment they're not interested, right? So you trying to control the outcome by texting him, calling him, it puts you in the energetic mode of chasing him, which is a turnoff, right? So a lot of times also women try and get men to take them out. So they invite them somewhere, right? And okay, well, he's not taking me on dates. So I have this company picnic coming up. Um, I'm going to invite him to my company picnic. Or I got an extra ticket to this concert. So I'm going to invite him to this concert. That's trying to control the outcome, right? Because you're trying to create experiences for you guys instead of allowing him to lead the experience, right? Because if he's interested in you and he wanted to date you, he would recommend dates. He would take you on a date, right? So if a man isn't taking you on dates, you don't want to plan a date, right? Because you're letting him know that you don't have other options, right? You're letting him know that you're desperate and you really need him to be the one who rescues you from your desperation, right? And that doesn't feel good to a man. It doesn't feel good to a man to feel like he has to rescue a woman from her desperation and her loneliness and her pit of despair, right? Because she doesn't have anything else going on for her. And this is popular, this is contrary to popular belief, but I'm gonna say this really quick, right? Um, so a lot of men, when a lot of women have objections about roster dating, so they say, well, men don't like that. They're gonna say, they get mad when they find out you're dating other men. Well, one, they shouldn't find out because it's none of their business. Like, it's none of their business. Two, but this is the thing. Um, men aren't men aren't mad that you're roster dating, right? They're not mad, right? It's more so the issue becomes they're not mad because they know that they really don't have the right to stake a claim on you, and they aren't committed to you, right? And commitment is engagement. So a man knows that if he's not asked you to marry him, that he really doesn't have a stake or claim or right to you like that, right? He knows that you're a free agent, right? Now the problem is that a lot of women don't know that they're free agents. So they're committed and they're, acting like they're drafted for a team that has not picked them, right? So the problem is that with when you roster dating, you have a lot of women say, well, you know, men say they're not going to deal with the woman who's dating other men, right? And so they say these type of things because they want you. They're gonna hope. They're thinking that you're just playing a game, right? They're thinking that they feel like, okay, this woman, she just playing a game. She's just trying to get a reaction out of me. She don't really have real boundaries and standards, right? So they're gonna test you to see if you actually have standards, if you actually have boundaries, right? And so a lot of women say, well, men say they don't date women who date other men, right? And so that woman gets scared. Once again, fear. Fear comes from the ego, fear of rejection. Gets scared, like, oh, he said he don't talk to women who date other men. Okay, so I'm not gonna date other men because I really like him and I don't want to lose him. Or, maybe that's true, they don't. See, this is the thing. So then you lose out and he won, right? Because he convinced you to do something outside of your boundaries and your standards, right? So this is the thing. You probably didn't really have those boundaries or standards because honestly, if you don't, how the saying goes, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything, right? So a person who really has boundaries and standards, they can't be strayed, they can't be swayed to just go with any old type of thing. This is how a lot of people are able, who are weak and able to listen to cults and things like that, is because they have absolutely no type of sense of self, or they don't stand for anything. They don't have any standards. They don't have any boundaries. So anybody can tell them anything and they'll believe it, right? So this is how a lot of people end up in different cults. When you have a strong sense of self and worth and what you want in life, then somebody can't just come to you and say something and you be like, oh, okay, and just believe anything people say, right? You won't have that gullibility, right? So this is the thing, like, a man isn't hoping, man knows that you have the right to date as many men as you want. He know that, but he hoping that you don't know your worth and that you'll fall for that. You'll fall for that little manipulation tactic that he's giving you, saying that he don't date other women, date men, or I'm sorry, date women who date other men, who's dating more than one man, right? He's hoping that you will feel scared to lose him and go along with that, right? So it's manipulative, right? And maybe there's this small percentage of men who really don't date women who date other men, and oh well, they're just not the one for you. But most men, they'll still date you if you date other men, especially since they shouldn't even know anyway. It's not their business because they're dating other women and they're not letting you know. Please believe that. They're not telling you all the other women that they're dating. They're not trying to explain themselves when messages pop up on their phone. They're not explaining themselves. So women need to get out of that thing where they feel like they need to explain themselves to men when you're just in a dating game. You're not committed. Stop having instant boyfriend syndrome. Stop having instant commitment syndrome, right? So this is the thing. The way you need to step out of all that type of stuff and you need to lean back. And if you really feel like there's something that is bugging you about a situation and it's not block or delete worthy, because a lot of times we get too block and delete happy. But if you're dealing with something that's where it just needs a conversation to be had, and if he's open to making a change, then cool, you guys can move forward, right? So this is the thing. So instead of trying to do things to control the outcome or be manipulative or use strategies or all those other type of things, what you want to do is, as I've spoken about throughout this section, if you want a man to get to do something, he has to feel that he has to feel it here. He has to feel what you're telling him. He has to feel that he's not making you happy, right? And that it's in his power to do something to make you happy, right? And this type of stuff really only works for men who actually have some type of feelings for you, right? And this is a great way to figure out if a man actually, if you mean something to him and if he has feelings for you. Because if you have conversations, what I'm about to tell you right now, with a man and he disregards it, he's like, oh, you crazy, you're ridiculous, you're doing too much, you're overreacting, or he just completely disregards you and continues to do the same thing, that right there lets you know that he doesn't care about you, right? You're not a priority to him. Maybe you might be a priority in the future, but at this moment in time, you're not a priority to him and he doesn't care. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about your feelings, right? So when it comes to trying to get someone, when you want him to make a change, right? You want him to do something for you, right? So say you want him to start calling, right? So say he's one of those men who like text, never picks up the phone, never calls, right? But you want him to start calling you, right? That's a reasonable thing to want, right? You want to hear his voice. You want to make sure that he's actually a man and he got a deep voice and he not actually low key a woman that's catfishing you into some type of lesbian situation shit. You want to make sure that he's actually a man, right? So you want to hear his voice. You're tired of texting, right? You guys been texting paragraphs and novellas to each other for the last week, 2 weeks, right? So instead of being like, you know what, you need to start calling me. I'm not gonna answer. I'm not gonna answer the phone no more if you don't call me. Or I don't know what type of women you used to, but I don't accept just text. Or worse, trying to control the situation by calling him. Okay, so I'm gonna call him. He not gonna keep texting me. I'm gonna call him. I'm gonna FaceTime him, right? Trying to control the outcome, trying to control the situation, right? Those are the last things you want to do, especially if you want him to call you. You don't call him. You know, you don't call him. You don't initiate that call. You don't initiate that FaceTime. So one thing you need to do is you need to get into how it makes you feel, right? So I always say this: femininity is about getting into your feelings, getting into how it makes you feel. So how does it feel when he doesn't call, when he texts you instead of calling you? How does that feel? So you may say, okay, I feel a little annoyed. I feel disregarded. I feel like, no, that's not emotion. I don't know, maybe you can feel sad. Maybe you feel rejected or something like that. So those are emotions, right? That's how you feel. Like, what is this action? What kind of feeling is this action producing in me? Maybe you don't even have a word for it. Maybe you just feel like, ugh, I just feel ugh about it. I feel blah, or I feel yuck, or I feel like, you know. Sensations are also feelings. So if you just don't feel comfortable, like I just don't feel comfortable with it. Those are the type of things you need to get in contact. You need to get in contact with how you feel about a certain situation, right? How is this making me feel? So after you know how it makes you feel, you can own that. You can say, okay, I feel this because of the meaning that I'm giving the situation. Because I feel like, him not calling me, maybe I feel like I feel a little suspicious. Maybe I feel like maybe he's married, or maybe I'm afraid he's married or something like that. Or he live with another woman, like why he can't pick up the phone, right? So then you have to realize that what you're feeling is about you, right? It's not about him, right? It's not about what he's doing or is not doing. It's about how you're interpreting the situation, right? So then that way you can speak to him in a way that doesn't arouse his ego and makes it about you, right? Because really, at the end of the day, your emotions are your responsibility and they're about you. Because two people can experience the same different situation to have two completely different emotions, right? Like for one person, somebody can come to me and say, "Hey, you're ugly," right? And then because I know I'm not, I would just be like, oh, okay, like laugh it off or something to keep it pushing, right? But maybe someone who's been struggling with how they look, or maybe they themselves believe how they look, believe that they're not attractive, someone came up to them and say, you're ugly. That's probably going to hurt their feelings. They're going to feel triggered, right? They're going to feel, their ego is going to feel attacked. Like, oh, she's bringing up my insecurities. That person bringing up my insecurities by saying I'm ugly because I actually believe I'm ugly. So it affects you, right? But the same situation happened to the same people, right? But they had two totally different reactions, right? I laughed it off. I was like, you crazy. You must be blind. You don't see me. The other person is like, oh, you know what? I actually do believe I'm ugly, or I believe I'm not as attractive as other people. So my feelings are hurt. Like I feel hurt. I feel sad, right? So this is the thing. Like, is what someone does. That's not the problem. It's how you're interpreting what they do based on your own internal issues, your ego, your environment, your mentality, your mindset, how you view the world. Those type of things are what create the emotions that you have about a situation. So even though the fact that you're bothered by the fact that he's not texting you, right? But him texting you is not the problem, right? It's how you're interpreting that. What meaning you're giving to that, right? So you're giving the meaning to that it probably means that maybe he has another woman, or you're not important, or he's hiding something, right? Like, why can't he pick up the phone, right? So that's the meaning that you're giving to it. But another one may give it he may not be called, he may be dating two different women, or dating two different women at the same time. And he may text both of them, and they both have a different interpretation of the situation, right? One may be completely unbothered, maybe because she has a roster, or maybe because she don't like calls and she only like text, right? So she may be completely unbothered and be fine with just texting. Another one means dating you have a problem with just texting, right? So it's not him that's the problem, it's you, right? And I'm not saying that in an accusatory way, but I'm saying that your emotion is how you're interpreting the situation. So you have to make it about you when you talk to him, right? You get in your feelings and say, I feel a little uncomfortable with just texting. You know, I would like to hear your voice sometimes, right? So this is all about, you didn't say anything about him, right? You didn't, in this way, you bypass his ego, because the ego is all, especially someone who hasn't mastered their ego, which most people haven't, right? Most people are self-aware and have mastered ego. So the ego is always looking for certain buzzwords coming from other people so that it can feel attacked or triggered. So if you say something like, why you don't never call me, right? Or, where you're hiding something, like, you never call me, right? So you automatically, his ego gets triggered, and his ego is like keywords. It's like keywords. You never do this. You always do this. Like those type of keywords trigger the ego, trigger that person's ego. So then they feel attacked. And when you feel attacked, what do you want to do? You want to defend yourself, right? So then they get in defense mode, right? Because the ego is trying to defend itself. So then in that time, a lot of time, those situations becomes a back and forth thing where it's like you're going back and forth with each other and nothing really is solved. And a lot of times that creates more dissension, right? So instead of doing that, you're making it about you, right? So that person's ego can't get flared up if you're not saying anything about them, right? Because it takes well, their ego shouldn't. A lot of people are easily triggered. So if the person is easily triggered, that's a whole nother thing. But people who are normally triggered and not easily triggered, which is like get offended by any and everything, um, If you are not talking directly to them, most of the time their ego won't get flared up, right? Unless their person is like I said, they're easily triggered. Like any and everything triggers them, right? They have a very, very fragile ego, right? So their ego won't get flared up. Their ego won't feel offended. Because you said, I have an issue, it's about me. I'm making this about me. I have a problem with this situation. It's about me. You're admitting that it's your issue, right? So then he's able to hear that because his ego doesn't flare up, right? So then that bypasses his male ego and hits him in the heart. It's like, oh, I feel that. I feel that. Okay, I feel how I could do better. I feel how this could be distressing her in some way, right? And as a man, and if a man cares about you, he's not going to want to bring distress to you, especially about something that he can easily fix, right? If you have a very uncomplicated problem that he can easily solve and he cares about you, he's going to want to solve that problem, right? So it's simple. Like the solution is just to pick up the phone and call her. Okay, I can do that, right? That's the easy fix, right? So, a normal response from a healthy, emotionally available man who cares about you is going to be something like, oh, you know what? You're right. My bad. Okay. And then he'll make an effort from that point on to call you more, you know? So it's all about the effort. If he makes an effort to make more contact by via phone calls, then you know that you have gone through him, you matter to him and stuff like that, right? He may not call as much as you like, but if he's making effort, that's what matters, right? But if he's like, oh girl, you crazy. You crazy. You should just be happy I'm texting you. Like you asking for too much. Or I'm always at work. What you expect? Or didn't I call you last week? Why you need calls? Like any of those type of things, any of those responses where he's like making you wrong and making you feel like you are crazy for wanting a phone call, right? That lets you know that he's doesn't care or he's hiding something or something like that or whatever the situation is, it's just not a good fit at that point, right? So a lot of women, they say, okay, well, they start second guessing and say, well, maybe, we do have good conversations via text. Maybe he'll come around. Don't do that type. So like I said, in the dating game, you're not committed to something. You're not committed to any one day game. So if you see red flags, if something isn't working out for you, you don't need to like quote unquote try and fit the square into the circle. If it's not working, cut it off and keep moving, right? Or if you have a roster, put him at the bottom of the roster and, continue to focus yourself on men who know how to lead and who are interested in making you a priority, right? Right? Because, like, yeah, so that's basically how you do it. You just get in, you make it about you when you're communicating with him. That's how you get him to do what you want, because if he cares about you, that will hit him directly in the heart. When you are connecting with your heart and you communicate from your heart space, then that connects immediately to his heart space. And that the heart bypasses the ego, because the heart is connected to the spirit, right? And the ego is connected to the flesh. So in order to bypass the flesh, the human version of yourself, you have to go to the heart of the matter. You don't say get to the heart of the matter. Get to the core. Your heart is your core. Your heart is your spirit. So when you connect from someone's spirit to spirit, you're elevating past the ego. The ego is down here. Connecting with them at the heart level is up here, right? This is heart spirit level up here. This is invisible world up here, right? So to keep from triggering people, you need to connect to them up here in the heart, right? So that's why they say love other people, because excuse me, that's why I say love other people, right? That's why the verse says love other people. Love other people as yourself, because when you love people, you're connecting heart to heart, and that automatically bypasses that person's ego, right? Think of the times that you have been reprimanded and someone reprimanded you and they came at you and they was attacking you and stuff like that, and you got defensive. But then if like a parent or someone who actually cared about you said, hey, sweetie, you shouldn't be doing that. Like, there's better ways. And they came from you from a place of love, right? You was able to receive it better, right? Because they bypassed your ego, which was down here, right? The ego was down at the bottom, lower man, higher man up here, right? So when you connect from um, your heart to a man's heart, hey, Nat, when you connect from your heart to a man's heart, he feels that, right? It hits him like right in the gut, or right in the heart, I should say. It hits him right in the heart, right? And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, I can feel that I'm bringing her some type of discomfort or distress, right? So he says he feels it. So the last thing a man wants to do is feel unpleasant emotions, right? Or cause his woman or cause a woman that he's interested in to feel unpleasant emotions because of him. So he would come up with a solution to fix that, right? So like I said, in a normal situation, if he is healthy and he cares about you, he'll say something like, okay, I'll make an effort to call you more. And then he will proceed to do that, right? So that's another thing to look at. If he says he's gonna call you more and he don't, it's the same thing, right? He disregarded you and you probably don't mean that much to him. Or he's just emotionally unavailable, right? A lot of emotionally unavailable men will do that. They'll say one thing and do something completely different, right? Um, but if he's healthy, he's emotionally available, those type of things, he will attempt to make a change, right? So, so I have a great exercise in this book about feeling the feeling, getting in tune with your feelings. Because this is all these getting into your feelings is also a great way to bypass the ego in yourself, right? Because a lot of emotions, most negative emotions, come from the ego, right? Especially any emotion that is surrounded by fear. Now, anger is not always a negative thing. Sometimes there is a righteous reason to be angry, right? So it depends on the situation, right? Are you angry because you feel like someone is hurting you, and they actually are? Like, for example, or are you angry because you feel some type of entitlement and you're not getting your way, right? So this is the thing, like, if you see, so if you were to walk down the street and there's an innocent child standing there, right? And then all of a sudden somebody came up and just started beating up that child, right? Now, if you got angry about that situation, that would make sense, right? Because it would be that's what I mean, a righteous reason to be angry, right? Because that's not a good thing for him to be beating up a child, right? A helpless, poor, defensive child. So, um, it's kind of like, I get, righteous means it's like good. There's a good reason for you to be angry, right? But an unrighteous reason, which is usually rooted in the ego or usually entitlement, is usually why most people get angry, because they have some type of source of entitlement. So most anger is rooted from the emotion of entitlement or from the feeling of entitlement, and entitlement comes from the ego. So you get angry. Um, let's see some perfect example. So you used to getting a call from a man every day, right? And then one day he just don't call you that day, or like getting a good morning text from him every day, and one day he just don't give you that good morning text, and then so you feel entitled to that good morning text, right? You feel entitled to it, so you get angry, right? And then you curse him out, like, who you with? Why you didn't call me? Like, why you didn't text me good morning? All this other stuff. So that type of anger that comes from entitlement comes from the ego, right? So you need to realize, so anger is one of those tricky emotions. Like, do you have a righteous reason to be angry, or are you angry because you feel some sort of entitlement? So it's usually one of those two things are the reasons why people get angry, right? So getting in these doing these feeling exercises is a great way to get in tune with your emotions. That way you can easily recognize emotions that are rooted in your ego and elevate yourself out of those emotions You can realize higher emotions, right? Positive emotions like happiness, joy, gratitude, those type of emotions, right? Emotions that keep you at a high vibration, not emotions that keep you low and rooted in the ego, right? So, and then we get to know, and even, but not saying like condemning having bad emotions, negative emotions, because all emotions have a place, right? And whatever you feel, you just feel it, right? But it's what you do with that emotion, right? It's what you do, it's how you act on it, right? So if you're just angry about a situation, you're just angry about it, that's good. But if you get so angry that you go and like shoot somebody or kill them, right? Then you took it too far. You were too far gone into your ego, right? But if you're just like, oh, you know what, like what they did was wrong, that was terrible, they did that to me, but I'm going to figure out how to get myself out of feeling like this and get myself into a higher feeling. This is why exercise, like what I have in the book, is so important. So you can get in tune with your emotions, because honestly, emotions are temporary things. They pass. Like 1 minute you're happy, the next minute you're sad, the next minute you're excited. The next minute you're down. The next minute you're up. The next minute you're kind of in the middle, neutral feeling. Like emotions are very temporary things. So you need to like kind of go with the flow and move them along, especially the negative ones. You need to figure out a way to get out of them quickly. People who don't know how to get out of their emotions quickly end up in things like depression and things like that, and end up having mental problems because they stay stuck instead of moving out of it, figuring out how to move out of it. Right? So if you feel angry, if you feel some type of fear, you need to figure out how to move to the next best state. So if you feel afraid to do something, usually they would say whenever you feel afraid to do something, you should just do it anyway, right? So a lot of people are like, oh, I'm afraid to leave my job. I'm afraid to move to a new state. I'm afraid to go sit down at this restaurant by myself, right? I'm afraid to learn how to ride a motorcycle, whatever. I'm afraid to, you know, sign up for that program that I know I should sign up for. Those type of things, right? You need to just do it. So that's usually how you get over fear. Because I know when I first started doing this, I was like, I'm afraid to talk in front of people. I don't like my voice. I don't like this. I don't like that. Like, what if people don't like what I have to say? What if people don't listen to me? What if, right? And this is my ego telling me, okay, these people don't want to hear what you have to say, or, your voice isn't like, what's it called? Like a radio voice or something like that, or like, you know, different things that the ego told me, and like I felt nervous about, getting in front of camera and talking to people, right? But then I just said, okay, so I can stay rooted in this fear of feeling like I have nothing to say. People are not going to listen to me. People are going to make fun of me. Um, I don't really remember the emotions I used to have, but whatever they were, they all came from my ego. So, right, I just said, okay, like Nike, just do it, right? What's the worst that happen? Maybe they will laugh. Maybe they won't listen. And if they don't, then they just don't. And I guess this is something that I'm just not meant to do, right? So, um, so I went ahead, I just did video, and I haven't looked back since. Now I'm completely comfortable in front of the camera and I have no problems. So that's the thing about fear. Most fear is unfounded. That's why it comes from the ego, because it has no basis. And most things that come from the ego have no basis, right? So when you do the thing that you're afraid to do, you make your weak ego less and less strong. Remember what I said about starving ego a couple days ago, right? These are the things that starve ego, and less will you be controlled by your ego, and you will not be rooted in egoic behaviors and emotions, right? And if, when they do happen, you'll be able to quickly just be like, okay, this is my ego. Let me get to the next situation. Or let me do this anyway because my ego is trying to keep me stuck, right? Because my ego is telling me all these things and making me be afraid to get in camera, because my ego didn't want me to, get out of my comfort zone, right? Because to the ego, when you get out of your comfort zone, it feels like to the ego that you're going to die. Like I said the other day, it literally feels like you're going to die, right? And so the ego is trying to keep you protected and safe in the comfort zone. So that's why it makes you feel afraid, so you don't take action, right? So when you get over that and you say, okay, I'm going to do this anyway, even though I'm afraid, little by little, your ego starts to get lower and lower and lower. And it's like, okay, I really had nothing to be afraid of, right? And I'm sure people who have done something they've been afraid of in the past can attest to that, that, you know, you were afraid to do something, but once you did it, you realized that it was nothing to be afraid of, right? So that's the thing with getting into with your emotions. You will start to realize a lot of things that you're afraid of, you should not be afraid of. And this is especially true in relationships. You're afraid to lose a man. You're afraid that he's not going to listen to you if you say things in a certain way, or he's, you know, you think like if you say it in this way instead of yelling or screaming, he's not going to take you seriously. All those things are fear. Just try it, right? And you'll see that men will listen. Men will listen to you, right? Okay, so that's it for today. If you like this video, like it. If you're not subscribed to my channel, go ahead and subscribe, comment, and the link to this book that I am walking you guys through will be in the description, as well as if you want to really know where I hang out, then join my Facebook group. Yeah. So until next time, guys, have a great day. Bye-bye.